Hey sports fans, we're back, and today we're here to talk about a guy that's fastly becoming one of the better defensive players in the league and was one of the most important pieces on the Super Bowl winning Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. That player is none other than 2019 sack leader and defensive stalwart Shaq Barrett. Since coming into the league, Shaq spent most of his time serving as a role player or a situational guy who sat behind other stars as he waited for his turn to shine. Now, after switching zip codes from Denver to Tampa Bay, Barrett has fashioned himself into one of the most frightening players in all of football, and at 28 years old, we're pretty sure he'll be terrifying offenses for quite some time. But these are things you probably know about the two-time Super Bowl champion. Today we're going to look at 10 things you didn't know about Shaq Barrett. Before we dive into all things Shaq, do me a quick favor and click on that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all our content. All done? Alright, on to our list. Number 10. He went to boarding school to grow up in a safer area. When Shaq Barrett was younger, he lived in the kind of neighborhood that trouble just finds you, as Shaq's dad put it. In order to keep Shaq and his brother Kevin out of harm, the Barrett parents sent the boys to live with a family in Nebraska and to attend a boarding school called Boys Town. Shaq and Kevin lived in a home with a married couple and several other kids where they had chores and regular meal times. The structure worked wonders for Kevin and Shaq, who had a hard time adjusting at first. The two brothers, who have always had each other's back, were able to tough it out together and grew to like their new surroundings as they also began to thrive in their respective sports of football and wrestling. Number 9. Shaq Barrett was buried on the depth chart 2 years ago in Denver. The sack master you see today was not the same guy 2 years ago back when he was a member of the Denver Broncos, behind three-time first-team All-Pro Von Miller and rookie standout Bradley Chubb. Barrett finished out his time in Denver without any complaints, but when it came time to test the waters in free agency, Barrett jumped on a one-year, $4 million deal with the Bucs, which gave him the opportunity to compete for a starting gig. Compete Barrett did, and the defensive diamond in the rough panned out for the Bucs to the tune of an outstanding 19.5 sacks. The sack total was even 1.5 higher than his former teammate Von Miller's career high. How much improved was Barrett, you say? Before coming over to the Buccaneers, Barrett had only recorded 14 sacks in his 5 years in Denver. Call it a new scheme, call it a fresh start. The one thing we do know is that Shaq went from a guy that was giving other dudes a breather to a guy breathing down quarterbacks' necks and causing havoc to offenses every Sunday. At just 28 years old and still in his prime, we'd guess the Bucs will extend Barrett or at least franchise tag him to keep one of their defensive stalwarts around for another Super Bowl run. Number 8. Shaq got married at 19 years old. As they say, when you know, you know. And at 19 years old, Shaq Barrett knew his longtime girlfriend was it for him when he married high school sweetheart Jordana. Shortly after getting hitched, the two started a family, so while Shaq was doing his thing at Colorado State, off the field he was working an overnight shift for a road construction crew to earn some extra money for his growing family. He said that his family, which consisted of 3 children by the time he was 22, served as his motivation to work his way into a role with the Broncos. Number 7. Shaq and his brother Kevin attended a Division II school together. The two Barrett brothers attended boarding school together, but what we didn't tell you is that their school days together didn't stop there. The Barrett boys attended college together over at Nebraska Omaha, where Shaq played football and Kevin wrestled. The brothers' college stint didn't last long after Shaq transferred to Division I school Colorado State, where he went on to start for 3 years and win Mountain West Defensive Player of the Year honors during his final season. Kevin, who was a top 10 recruit coming out of high school, with some having him ranked as high as number 2 in the nation. He was also a 3-time Nebraska Class B champ and had won his last 83 matches in a row. When he left Nebraska Omaha, he ended up at the University of Nebraska at Kearney, where he went 9-2, 32-8 as the team's starting heavyweight. Of his 8 losses during his junior year, 2 came to D1 opponents, but he also beat 2 D1 opponents. Number 6. He walked onto his first college team. While we're talking about college, Shaq had been offered a scholarship to play ball at North Carolina, but the idea of leaving his brother behind didn't feel right, according to Barrett's dad, so the two attended the University of Nebraska Omaha together. When Shaq showed up to campus, he was a 6'2", 230-pounder who coaches said didn't know how strong he was. The team switched Barrett from D-line to inside linebacker, a position he hadn't played since way back in middle school, but Barrett was open to the switch and became dominant right away. Good enough to go from walk-on to starter by the second week of the season. By week 4, Barrett was Defensive Player of the Week. Number 5. Shaq went undrafted. Every once in a while, a player that produced in college and checks most NFL boxes slips through the cracks and goes undrafted. Seldom does that player become a league leader in sacks and one of the most dominant linebackers in football. In 2019, Barrett was the NFL sack leader with 19.5, just a few shy of Strahan's elusive NFL record of 22.5. The road to becoming sack leader was an unlikely one, given that Barrett had failed to record more than 5 in a season in any of his previous 5 seasons. By Barrett's admission, he needed a change in scenery, and for Barrett, becoming a Buccaneer meant becoming a wrecking ball on defense. Sacking quarterbacks at will and blowing up plays in the backfield with 19 tackles for loss to go with his nearly 20 sacks. Now a 2-time Super Bowl champion after winning his first in Denver and his second in Tampa Bay, this undrafted and unlikely hero of the Buccaneers is one of the better success stories in football and a reason for other undrafted players to go fight for starting spots despite their draft capital. Number 4. He left college with only 2 moves. Without listing all of Shaq's Colorado State awards and accolades here, let's just say the dude did his thing in college, and even though he got snubbed in the draft, he was still highly regarded at the collegiate level. It's crazy to think that he, or any other defensive player for that matter, could get by with only knowing 2 moves at their respective position. At linebacker for Shaq, those 2 moves were a bull rush and a double swipe. Aside from that, it was all instincts and physical ability that kept him afloat. After finding his way onto Denver's practice squad, Barrett got to learn from the likes of DeMarcus Ware, Von Miller, and Shane Ray. Shaq claims he's always been a quick study, and by soaking up what he got from all his teammates, he was able to add to his arsenal and became a dangerous force. Number 3. Shaq and Jordana Barrett started a foundation for foster children. We told you that Shaq benefited from going to a boarding school and living with his foster family along with his brother Kevin. Well, that had a lasting impact on Shaq, and he and his wife wanted to help out today's youth the same way his foster family helped him years prior. Shaq and Jordana started 50-50 with the intention of filling children's hearts back full, one child at a time. Shaq's wife Jordana was in a foster system from the time she was 2 months old and claims she wouldn't be here without it, and that it's something dear to both her and Shaq. We believe you, Jordana, and support the effort you and Shaq are putting back into the community. Number 2. Shaq was on a historic pace in 2019. When Shaq Barrett came over to the Buccaneers from the Denver Broncos, he was promised the opportunity to compete for a starting job in a defense that was rebuilding and finding its identity. When Barrett came over to the Buccaneers, he would be paired with one of football's most creative defensive minds in Todd Bowles, and it didn't take long into the season before the Bucs and the NFL got a taste of what Barrett could be when he was finally unleashed in a full-time role and in a scheme that fits with his abilities. Shaq came out blazing, tying the NFL record for sacks in the first 3 weeks with 8, and then also tying the NFL record for sacks in 4 weeks. Barrett was snubbed, and his play also exceeded the 1-year, $4 million deal he came over to Tampa Bay on. If only free agency worked this smoothly for everyone. Shaq Barrett and his services didn't come at a discount in 2020, though after the linebacker and edge rusher was franchised and his salary was more than quadrupled. Number 1. Shaq wants to be a Buck, but he wants to get paid more. The NFL landscape could be a fickle one. One day you have a job and you're part of an organization's plans, and the next year you could be out in the cold while the younger guy or more inexpensive guy is vying for your spot. Shaq Barrett has spent his entire professional career fighting for his roster spot, and after putting together his 2 best seasons as a pro with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and helping them hoist a Lombardi trophy, Barrett wants to get paid like it. Head coach Bruce Arians has already gone on record with mixed signals regarding free agents by declaring after the Bucs' victory parade that most of the important Buccaneers players' asses weren't going nowhere, but sang a different tune when being asked about how the 2021 Bucs would compare to the 2020 Bucs, stating that it would be a different team and that there will be different players that make up that team. When asked about his future with the Bucs, Shaq said he wants to be a Buck for a long time, but also wants to get paid and is most definitely looking for a long-term deal. Shaq doubled down on his intentions, saying that he feels like it's time for him to break the bank now and he wants to set up his family better, and his new contract won't keep him from producing. With the deadline to franchise tag players upon us, and as teams begin wading through the pool of free agents, we imagine Barrett will be a high priority with the Bucs, and this will get solved in the coming months. Alright, sports fans, that's it for our time on defensive superstar and one of the rising names in football, Shaq Barrett, and the 10 things you hopefully didn't know about him. What did you think about this list? Anything we missed? Let us know by dropping a comment and getting that conversation started. And if you haven't done so already, go ahead and click that subscribe button to stay up to date on all our content and more videos like this one. Until next time, sports fans.